Welcome. I am Dr. Patrice Berry, licensed clinical psychologist, and here I share educational information on a variety of topics. So today I tried something new. Thank you all for everyone that is coming over from my stream talking about Tyler Perry's um, show. Thank you. Today on this stream, we're going to be talking about the two documentaries that came out. So I think the one on Amazon Prime, that one came out first. No, yes, and that was from a while ago. Desperately Seeking Soulmate, Escaping Twin Flames Universe. And then on Netflix, recently, Escaping Twin Flames came out. I saw it on Netflix first and then realized the algorithm probably, like Amazon probably saw that, I don't know, like, but the one over on Amazon, I became aware of that one and I watched that one too. I'm going to go on ahead and put my banner up because there are, just as for my content warning, because there are things that we're going to talk about. Now, I'm not going to dig into like deep details of anything, but there are going to be trigger warnings for religious trauma, for um, high control group type trauma, SA, and then also financial abuse as well. And so, once again, so glad that that redirect worked today. Let me know if y'all have already seen this documentary. So the Netflix one, I think more people might be seeing. I'm not exactly sure. I had never heard of this group before. I um I hadn't. And so let's start off with talking about what is a twin flame. And so twin flames is something, I believe it comes from like a possibly like it's from like a spiritual perspective. So there are people that use the term twin flame that are not associated with this particular group. Now, people talk about harmonious twin flame. So that is something that Jeff and Shalia ended up coming up with. And so those are the two people right here. Jeff, and then her birth name was Megan, and she changed her name to Shalia. And in the documentaries, they talk about that Megan or Shalia, that she was always the more spiritual person, and that Jeff tended to be more focused on money. I will also give the warning that Jeff and Shalia deny all of these claims. They have something out on Instagram because their group is still active. They have a Facebook group. Journalists have joined. Please don't go out and join their group. Okay, like stay away from. Please don't don't go out and do those things. But there are people that have like joined these groups that have been out there, and the stories that the people tell are absolutely horrific, and things seem to have got worse and worse over time. And so it starts off not being like a religious group or not being that type of thing. And then they, according to the documentary, they wanted to find a way around, like they wanted to be a nonprofit. And if you're a religion, you are tax exempt. And so they created this religious side. And so, sorry that the redirect didn't work for some people. I did get some feedback that it did work for others. And so it's all right. But I wanted to start with talking just in general about warning signs of a cult or a high control group, because you see a lot of these warning signs in what people have been reporting about this particular group. And so there tends to be authoritarian leadership where there's one person in charge. And for this group, it sounds like it's both of them. Jeff does tend to take, from what I've seen, he takes more of the more dominant role. And but they do work together. But the two of them are the ones that confirm people's twin flames. let me go back to describe what a flame is. Someone's is deeper than like a soulmate. It's like the who the person was meant to be with, and it's this deep connection. People have gotten in trouble for stalking their twin flame. There have been restraining orders put in place. And some people, they've thought, oh, this person and I, like, we've never dated, we've never talked, but I saw them, I felt connected to them. I think they might be my twin flame. And the group, supposedly, the group would encourage people to try to explore and see, is that their particular twin flame? Within a general cult, within these general situations, there tends to be isolation from family and friends, and really a drive to keep people within the group and talking to people within the group and kind of isolating people from people in the outside. There is always manipulation and control. And some of the things that I saw in the documentary that kind of seemed to be a red flag of this was the mirror exercise. So in it, they talk about, and I think I might have a slide, or I might, it might be on something else that I'm going to share a little bit later, where they're supposed to mirror saying, like, so if I have a problem with my husband, the mirror exercise is I have an issue with me and I need to work on blah, blah, blah. Like, it puts a person's problems back on themselves. And it's basically teaching them how to gaslight themselves, because like maybe I legit have a true concern that's not about me. That's and so anytime any organization like this, they always have some things that are helpful. Like, people often do feel better from some aspects of the group, or people feel this sense of community. They bond with other people. There does tend to be this positive side, and we're going to talk about that cycle of violence that these tend to take. There also tends to be financial exploitation as well, typically through volunteer, like, so like being not required, but highly, 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 highly encouraged to give large amounts of free time to the group, and then highly, highly encouraged to give financially to the group. So within this group, even if somebody was a coach who was coaching other people, they were still paying somewhere between, according to what's been reported, the coaches had to also pay for their own classes, and there was like a minimum financial requirement that coaches had to have in order to remain a coach. And what would happen is people would end up becoming like a full-time coach, and this is what they're doing. They're working for this organization, but then what ends up happening is, if they go against the group, if they don't do what the group expects them to do, particularly the leaders, if they don't, if they fall out of the good graces of the leaders, they end up losing their job. Like, they end up getting excommunicated from the group. And with this particular group, how what it sounds like what happened is that people would get kicked out of the Facebook group, and then like banned from, social media, and that they would be cut off in that way. There's often unrealistic promises. So the kind of red flag for me with twin flames is that the group promised, that had like a guarantee that you would meet your twin flame and that you would like be with your twin flame. And there was this guarantee of, if you do the work, you will have true love. And towards the end, so lots of, towards the end, what ends up happening is they start saying your twin flame is in the group. And towards the end, going back to that manipulation and control, Jeff and Shalia start pairing people up that are now same sex couples, but then they say one of them is male and one of them is female. So the things that have been reported, and Jeff and Shalia deny all of this. Like, they I'll just say that they deny it. But what's been reported is that they told people that, like, because on the Amazon documentary, on that one, they have a lesbian couple that was really excited to be a part of the group. They were really excited to grow and to do the spiritual work and do all those things. They were already, like, connected to each other, and they felt like they were able to be themselves within the group. But then what ends up happening is Jeff and Shalia want Anne to be like, they got the message that Anne is the divine male and that the other partner was the female. And now Anne should now be called Dan. And now Anne should now, like, cut their hair off, and that she should, that so like that they got the message that this person is actually a male, which is red flags all over. And within the Amazon documentary and then also the Netflix one, they have experts in gender identity that come on and talk about the fact that that is almost like a reverse conversion therapy where somebody's being forced into the gender identity that somebody else wants, and that's not what they are coming forward saying that they are. And Anne and their wife ended up leaving the group because of this. And but they had built a business. Like, so they were coaches, they were coaching other people. And because of this, like, they ended up out of the group. And yeah. And so I want to, oh sweetie no said the mirror exercise is basically, let's break down your sense of self so we can more easily control you. Exactly. Exactly, exactly. Um, so the algorithm knows that you like this, and somebody brought up Nexium, and I had never heard of this group. It's Keith. I can't say his last name is like Raina. I don't even want to get his last name wrong, but he was arrested for all the things that he did. His had where he, like, oh, it's it was the SCX cult kind of thing, and women were forced to be his, like, slaves. Like they literally use the word, like, they actually use that word. And Rainier, is it Rainier? Is that am I saying it correctly? That's how I would say it. I watched Mormon podcast, I think 2 years ago. I wanna say it was about maybe 2 years ago. Because I've been researching these things, their video popped up in my algorithm, and I did watch it. But the Nexium one, so it and the Mormon podcast stories, they interviewed a husband and wife that had, where the husband, he was never like fully on board, like he was never like a devoted, like he was skeptical the whole time. If people said like, oh, you're in a cult, they would kind of be like, oh yeah, like we kind of are. And so, like, they kind of joked about that. And their story was just very, very interesting. And within a lot of different group leaders, because I'm going to get to a slide that's going to talk about characteristics of cult leaders, I believe. I'm almost positive that I did that. I did the slides a few days ago, and like I've eaten a whole bunch of turkey between now and then. Ah, yes. And if you love culty type things, cults of consciousness. Yes. Um, that is super cool. Let me see. So the unrealistic promise within that I saw from my perspective with the twin flames was guaranteeing that they were going to be with their twin flames and just give us, 1,500, $2,000 a month, and we can promise you true love. And to me, it seems more about the money, but that's it. And so there's always this us versus them mentality. They always require extreme devotion to the leader. And I think I have a clip. I might not have this clip ready, but within the Netflix documentary, they have recordings of Jeff talking about that he thinks he's the second coming of Christ, and like he looks like Jesus, and like it is very, very odd, and I think he changed his name to Jeff Divine, and they commune with these crystals and the whole thing. So I'm not against spirituality. I am against religious abuse. And there's a line, and when you start telling people exactly what to believe, and if people don't believe what you believe, they get kicked out, that's a problem for me. And there within a cult, there tends to be fear and intimidation. And there's video of these group sessions that twin flames would have, and they would start, so like they would call on so and so of, okay, so where are things at with your twin flame? And they were like, oh well, he got a restraining order against me. And like, because there's a recording of this, and my recollection of what happens after that is that then, like, they try to have her mirror, and that really she just needs to try harder. Like, if she does the work, he'll see that they really are supposed to be together. Like, this is just wow. And so now is a good time probably for me to share with you all. We're gonna take, like, a small detour. It'll be worth it, I promise. But so this is over on Quora. So this is just where people ask questions. But someone asked this question, and this is from 2 years ago, I wanna say. It's from 2020, so maybe 3 years ago, where somebody said, "In 2 weeks, I'm to attend court for stalking my twin flame. Do you think the judge will believe all the gifts I sent her was simply because she's my twin flame?" And Irina just like breaks it all down. The judge does not believe in twin flames and will find you delusional, obsessed with this person. And unless you plan on insanity defense, do not even mention twin flames, because you will get hospitalized if they evaluate you with a psychiatrist and find you mentally ill. People send gifts to objects of their affection all the time. If she did not know your address, she would not return them even if she wanted to. I guess there was like a whole like back and forth about this. Um, Twin flame belief is not an excuse for stalking. They will give her a restraining order against you. Stay away from this person as far as possible and stop chasing her mentally also. If she never returned your feelings, she is not your twin flame. Get some therapy. The judge might even order you to be in therapy. Like, that was just, and there are all these questions. Why did my twin flame get me arrested for stalking her? Why did my twin flame runner go to the police for stalking? Is it a false twin flame? What are twin flame signs? Was not okay. Like, there are just all of these things that just come back to the chat. So I think what happened is, so Jeff and Shalia, they didn't start with Jeff is the Christ. Does that make sense? Like, what happened is they kind of started just a little eccentric. They had a YouTube channel. Like, things didn't start where they ended. Like, as he got more and more popular, like as things ended up kind of getting, as I think as they got more money, I don't know, like as he got more influence, it seems like things started going more and more off the rails from what I saw on both documentaries. Okay. Um, there can be a rapid change in beliefs or lifestyle. And then there's also a tendency for secrecy and deception. And within Nexium, so the interview that I watched, the people at the highest level actually had to take a vow. And one of the women, she actually wrote a book called The Vow, where she talks about her experience and all of that. Um, Yes. So Nexium, it's my understanding that they wanted beautiful, wealthy women, and then they turned them into, and it was branding. So, and it was branded with with his initials, like it was a cryptic way of his initials, which is just. So the so because people have reported twin flames to the police, and what the police have said is that people are allowed, so cults aren't illegal. I I don't know if it's religious freedom, I don't know what it is, but cults are not illegal. What can be illegal is like wire fraud or child A. So that's what ended up getting that one LDS leader, Warren Jeffs. The child stuff was what they got him for. So and so that's why I think I really wanted to talk about this because I hadn't really talked about ritualistic cult type stuff in this depth or this detail because people need to know the signs that they're in a high control group. And I like using high control group because people, I think, have a negative reaction to cult. So, like, if I had a friend and if I was concerned that they were in a high control group or cult, if I said, "Are you in a cult?" Like they would immediately get defensive and maybe shut down. But like if we talk about control, that might be an easier pill to swallow. Oh yeah, this group does have a lot of control over me. This group, so according to what's been said, Twin Flames, they ended up making this like meal plan where they of course sold the meals, so getting paid again. Like they created a business where they were selling the meals and but they were high protein, like it was people were gaining weight on it. And so they're literally controlling their food as well. And it was just it's a lot. All right. Warning signs of a high control group. The followers often feel like they're never good enough. And I also like to remind people that families can be a high control system if they have these qualities and traits. So some people have so that's I can't oh, the thing I'll say is because I've talked about Timothy Ferreter here on my page. And I think on the last video, I mentioned high control group, that even a family can have high control like this. And let's go back to those signs. So from what I saw, from the testimony I heard, Timothy Ferreter seemed to have an authoritarian leadership style. He seemed to isolate the victim in that case from the other family. Not so much friends, like the kid was able to like go to school and do all those things. But was physically isolated from the rest of the family. There seemed to be manipulation and control. There also seemed to be he devotion, like Tim, in my opinion, Tim wanted devotion. Fear and intimidation seem to be the parenting strategy used. And then there also seemed to be some secrecy because it was a secret, like how the child lived. The victim in that case. This is the boy in the box trial. So even within a family, you can also see some signs of high of like a high control group. All right. So absolute authoritarianism without accountability. There are records, books, articles, or TV programs that document the leaders of the group. Leaders are the exclusive means of knowing truth. So these people, they weren't able to commune with their higher being on themselves. Like they weren't able to say, that's not like you're saying God told you this is my person. That's not what God told me, or that's not what I feel is connecting in my spirit. Like you couldn't say anything like that. Like you had to go with what they believed, or from everything that's been reported, from everything I saw, they would immediately just start berating the person if they ever did speak up or speak back. I'm going to play a clip from it a little bit later. Um, Former followers are wrong for leaving. There is never a legitimate reason to leave. Unreasonable fears about the outside world that often involve evil conspiracies or persecution. So that didn't seem to happen within this particular group. I didn't personally see that from the stuff I saw. No meaningful financial disclosure regarding the budget. How is the money that's going into the organization being used? Now, Jeff and Shalia, they like recorded their huge house and their cars, and they seem to flaunt what they were doing with the money. And to me, from where I'm sitting, it seemed like they were saying, like, "This is how blessed we are. Like, don't you wanna be like us? Come join our organization, and you can have this type of success as well," despite that level of success, like, meaning that they were kind of using money from the people that were coming in. It's a whole thing. Um, Former members often report being harmed, and the leader is considered right at all times, and there's no tolerance for criticism or questions. And you definitely saw that within the clips that were played within the documentary. Also wanted to talk about the thought control, the mental game that happens. And so there's also this black and white, us versus them, good versus evil thinking. They often require some type of change in the identity, even the name. And so towards because it sounds like there was a bigger break before the Vanity Fair. I think it was the Vice article and a Vanity Fair article. Those were two big articles that were written on the group that kind of opened them up to larger scrutiny from the outside world. Um, Use loaded languages and cliches to stop complex thought. The one that kind of surprised me was when Jeff literally asked them to review two documentaries on cults and then write a paper that described why Twin Flames wasn't a cult. I'm going to have to go back to the chat for that one. So, y'all heard that right. So, Jeff supposedly had them watch a like 2 documentaries, I forget exactly which documentaries they were, about about cults, and then they had to say why this wasn't a cult. And if you all I just did a video on confirmation bias, so he was literally trying to do confirmation bias because he's already told them the result that they need to find. And so that they're looking for evidence of why, but like then ignoring all the evidence that goes against why they are. Like that's literally confirmation bias. If you're enjoying this, if you could hit that like button, it just helps in the whole UTB algorithm stuff. And then if you're not subscribed, go on ahead and hit that subscribe button. If this is the type of content that you like, I do court stuff, I do entertainment, and then I just do educational videos. Hopefully the algorithm will show you what you want. But yes, um, thank you. So, and thank you, Tish, for pointing this out. I mentioned this towards the beginning. So, twin flame is a very common word. It's a very common thing that people talk about. Sometimes even just meaning like it could even be like a best friend or just but like twin flames. It's like weird. It's just a strong connection or bond to a person. This group took something that was well known and then they kind of, which is very common within a high control group, they then twisted it to then say, "We know who your twin flame is. Only we can confirm who it is, and we can guarantee that you will be with this person." To me, that was preying on people's loneliness. And I think it was the Amazon documentary where one person was like, I'm happy. And they were like, no, 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 you don't have your twin flame. There's no way that you can be happy. And the person was like, I am happy. And that individual, I believe, ended up getting kicked out of the group. And so this group started the harmonious twin flame, which is like that was their thing. And but just if somebody's talking about twin flame, that doesn't tie back to this group. And there are aspects, there are because often what leaders will do 'Cause even with the Nexium group, the 2 survivors of the group that I saw interviewed over on the other podcast, they were like there were aspects that were really helpful. Like, there were teachings, like, that's why I would recommend it to people. I would recommend the 3-day or the 5-day training to people because the information was helpful. It's just if you get caught up in the system, if you kind of start getting into the control, the financial, the different ways that they can try to control the person, that's when I think problems end up happening. Um, yes, yes. I'm just checking out the chat. So I don't believe in like that there's only and this is just my personal belief. So I don't personally believe that there's only one person for every person. Um, I think we choose who we're with and we choose those relationships. To me, the best, safest relationships involve choice. So I choose my partner, he chooses me. And if at any point either one of us wanted to like didn't choose one another, we would have to have that conversation. Like there would be a it would be a whole process. But to me, I don't want to be with somebody that doesn't want to be with me. And I wouldn't want to force someone or like I don't know what the word is. I wouldn't want to be pursuing someone in this way. And the way that the group, according to people who have left the group, the way that it was described is they would describe the person in the group as like you're the pursuer and the other person is the distancer. So pursuer distancer is a really common thing that happens within relationships, but it's like it's in conflict. So like if normally if there's a disagreement, there's one person that wants to pursue and like resolve the agreement, and there's another person that doesn't want to talk about it. And typically, the goal within couples therapy is to get the pursuer to kind of back off and like give them some space, and to get the distancer to approach to be able to resolve the conflict. The goal is to meet in the middle. But that's within like a safe relationship where like we both agreed to be here, not a relationship where like that's only in the person's head and that the other person hasn't confirmed. It's a this thing is it is oh, it is wow. Hey witness, hello to the chat, hello to everyone. I'm just checking before I go back to the PowerPoint. So I must have said something that was rational and mathematically sound. Oh, hmm. So, what relationship do you think there is between the female and male leader? You're talking about Jeff and Shalia because they're married. Are you talking about them? Confirm with me who you're talking about. Because Jeff and Shalia, they met on Facebook in 2020, in 2012, I think. And the Amazon documentary had some of his past relationships, some people that he had been in, like in high school or something. And I think Jeff had had like a failed business venture in the past. I thought it was interesting that the Keith Raynour guy, he was not allowed to operate like a regular business in a particular. I think it was him. I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but I thought he got in trouble for like a scammy type thing. Um, yes, yes, yes. I love the sarcasm. It's like but then the group would be like, it's not stalking because they're your twin flame, they just don't know it yet, which is like, no, no, it's like it's literally stalking. Like, no, because sometimes what would happen is people, the twin flame would say, "Leave me alone. I don't like you." They would block them. They would say, like, "Don't talk to me. Don't," and then okay, so I guess we can talk about it. So one person from the group that's in the my brain. One person that was in the Netflix documentary, she ended up with a restraining order. And I think it was her birthday or something. I don't know. Like she went out to a club. She went to a venue but she wasn't even trying to see that particular person. Well, they ended up being in the same place and there was a restraining order. and she ended up getting arrested, and she was in jail for at least about a month. And then, like, so after that situation, she ends up, like, breaking away from the group also had this type of treatment that was done by, like, a former, let me try to see if I can find it. I probably took it on my notes about the group, 'cause I think they called the person a doctor, and I researched it, and it looks like her doctorate was in leadership, okay? Yes, Christie. I think it was like a Dr. Christie. I could be wrong. Yes, the mind map, okay? So they were trying to say that their coaching could, and later they had to say, we don't replace therapy, we don't replace these things. But because there were people with clinical depression, there were people with clinical anxiety that were trying to get help and support. And what can happen is individuals can be so desperate for, which is understandable. Like, I've tried therapy, I've tried these other things. Here's this group that's saying that they can help me. I want to give it a try. The only problem is from what I've seen, that group caused harm. And I do believe that mind map organization, it does look like it's still active. Yes. Mind alignment, something like that. It's a whole thing. I was able to find the website before. I'm not able to find it right now, but it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. It's a bunch of red flags. So many red flags, okay? Um, no. Alright. And so let me come back to, um, so they teach, sometimes these groups can teach thought stopping techniques to prevent critical thoughts. And what this one did instead is they did a mind mapping, which was more, that wasn't quite thought stopping. To me, it was a way, but I think they were calling their true thoughts distorted thoughts, but I think their true thoughts were true. Because if they were to say, I'm mad at you, Jeff, it would be like, maybe I have to turn around. I'm mad at me for, like everything was projection, and it was just, ugh. Allow only positive thoughts, use excessive meditation, but like, and this group didn't seem to do excessive meditation, singing, or prayer, or any of those things. Reject rational analysis, critical thinking, and doubt. Yes, we definitely saw that in this group. All right. So within the group, how it starts, and this is how people get hooked. It starts off with love bombing. So, what is love bombing? Let's kind of break it down. So, like, it's this, like, they're so happy to see you. They're so glad that you're here. And not in like a, but like it gets excessive. They want to know everything about you right away. They want you to share all your personal details, and they are sharing all of their personal details way too quickly. There's this need for constant validation, intense decorations of love, pressure to commit to the group. They're saying all the right things at first. There's this clinginess and like need to just kind of always be together and be a part of the group at first. So within like a relationship, sometimes there can be over the top expensive gifts that did not seem to happen within this group. There's this immense jealousy of other areas that your other places your time goes. So they really want you to be devoted and committed to the group. Things just feel off. And then there can also be this sudden coldness or withdrawal, which often makes the person want to get the love back, because they often think they're doing something wrong. Like, oh, wait a minute, like things were so great at first. Like, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing different? And then the like things have shifted for them to try to pursue it. We can't talk about these situations without talking about the cycle of narcissistic abuse, because this is, I think, almost all of these types of leaders show these types of traits. So I'm not saying that Jeff is a narcissist. I am saying that he thinks he's the second coming of Christ. And he doesn't seem to take feedback well. And there seem to be quite a few signs and symptoms of narcissism that were portrayed in the documentary. That's as PC as I can as I can do it. Y'all can say whatever y'all want in the chat. That's all I can say. So there is an idealizing phase. So the very first stage is sometimes called the honeymoon stage, where the narcissist puts you on a pedestal. It's intoxicating, consuming, and exciting. Idealization stage has lots of feel good vibes flowing. It's full of hope and endless possibilities because they're often talking about like being together very, very quickly. Like the relationship seems to be moving at a rapid pace, and it's often to hook the person to before they get to some of the other stages within the cycle. Then there's a devaluation stage. And in this stage, they've lost interest in you. You are no longer the top priority of them. You have been dethroned and have lost your place of value to them. And their true character starts to show. And to me, there was name calling. There was these group sessions like would get very mean. Like, I'm trying to be nice and say like, it was verbally abusive to me, like, from what I saw, there were very it was very, very problematic, the things that were shown on the especially the Netflix documentary. Um, Discard phase. In this stage, the narcissist ends the connection with you. They no longer have use for you, so they discard you. They might have you will see a glimpse of the person you were once connected with from that honeymoon stage, and at this stage, they are attempting to start that cycle all over again. And yes, I hope that was helpful. All right, this is that mirror, and this is actually from. So I found this online. Okay, so this is the actual Twin Flames universe. How to mirror exercise. Please never ever do this. This is how to gaslight yourself, okay? But in talking about it, I thought it was important to show just how so what often groups like this, what they often do is they take something that could be helpful and then they twist it and misuse it. So identify the upset. I am upset at Bob for rejecting me. Change the nouns and pronouns to yourself. I am upset at myself for rejecting myself. What? Is this true? No, I did not do. Bob rejected me. No. So, but like, so this is so step 3 is the gaslighting part. It's always true. What? What do you mean? And then step 4 is to love yourself. That's so vague. Identify and ask the part of you feeling upset what he or she needs to feel loved right now and give that to yourself. Like, what? I can't even keep that up much longer. I I just can't. I will definitely edit that part. I'll go back later and have that be a short. Um, okay, wait a minute. And the whole intimacy stuff. So, okay, let's talk about was it Marley? Was that the girl? Oh, I think she was like 19 years old when she joined the group. Her story is very, very triggering. Yes, the story of Marley. So she joined the group when she was 19, and there was a guy that had DM'd her on Facebook, and she knows she didn't really like him. But the group was like, "This is your twin flame. This is him. You should go move because he wasn't able to move from Utah. I think it was Utah, I could be wrong, but he wasn't able to move from his state because he had legal charges. Like, he had legal charges, okay? And for, like substances, and not but, like, she's 19 years old, and I think he was, like, 30 something, like, 35 maybe, and they were encouraging this, and she did not find him attractive. She did not she did not like him. I don't know that he was on parole. I do know that they later found out that he had schizoaffective disorder by bipolar type. And what that is that is schizophrenia symptoms mixed with bipolar symptoms. And so schizoaffective disorder, and he did not take his medication regularly, and she was told that her love could heal him. What? And, like, she didn't, and I just, uh, like, and but, like, she moved to be with him. He was extremely harmful in every possible way. He was unemployed, I believe. I believe he was unemployed. And, before so there was a leader in the group that had kind of so what happens in these groups is the coaches are kind of also they end up doing harm to the other members, and they are being harmed as well by the leaders, and this is just how the everything trickles down, because the coaches are told kind of what to do, how to do things, and if they don't do things the right way, they can end up getting kicked out. And the right way is like however, according to reports, however Jeff and Shalia want them to do it. And so the coach that had been coaching her, their relationship towards the end, of course, ends up breaking down. Marley wants nothing to do with her. I forgot her name. My brain and names. Um, uh, was that Shanice? Oh, I wonder if that was. I think that was Shanice. I think was her coach. Um, And the relationship was in no way for Marley and the guy, was it Josh? I'm bad with names. So with Marley and the guy that she ended up, yes, it was Josh. With Marley and Josh, it was in no way harmonious, and there was a lot of just manipulation and control. And um and she was told, so this is a quote from one of the videos that they played, because they recorded all their sessions. The sessions are all recorded, it's all documented. And so something that she's told is that it's not hurting you unless you want it to. It's like, no, 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 this is harmful. She should not be in this situation. And it was so, her former coach did help her get out of the group at the end, and, but Marley understandably has her own healing, has a lot that she's kind of going through, and, it's a it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. Okay. What I find fascinating is that some people with these disorders get committed, yet some gather a following. So the disorder, so the thing that I see, if we're talking diagnostically, so I cannot diagnose Jeff. I've never met him. And even if he was a client, then I definitely couldn't. But like I can honestly say like I've never met him. I've only seen those two documentaries and some of the reporting on this case. And with that, what I can say is there seem to be some very clear um, narcissistic type traits, also some antisocial type traits, because he has like a by any means necessary, but it's for his means. So I think he wants money, and I think he's okay getting it in these ways. And so Hmm. And, but I don't think he has so, like, the individual with the schizoaffective disorder, that individual wasn't one of the leaders. He was a member of the group who ended up in a relationship. I think they ended up married, that ended up with Marley, and so, yes. Why didn't anyone react to the young girl literally starting to cry? Because when he says that video was very, very hard to watch, where when they're like, "He is your twin flame," she just starts crying, and the way that Jeff, because I think Jeff knew, so normally people like him are really good at reading the emotions of others, but using it in a way that benefits them. I'll say that again. Often individuals like this, so I don't know what he does, but individuals like this are typically very good at reading the emotions of others and using those emotions against them for their own benefit. And so I think he could see that she was upset. And my recollection of that is that he then turned to say something like, "You're fighting it, like, y- just embrace this love. This is the love that you want." Like, it's just, ooh, ooh. And he was mean as being nice, okay? Like, it was verbal, like, it was extremely harmful, and there was no empathy, none whatsoever. I don't think he cared. I don't think he felt bad. A lot of the videos now, the docuseries, they're going to portray him in a particular light, like, they just are. So that's why I won't use only that information to try to come to some, like, final thought, and I couldn't do it anyway, but they are trying to play a particular narrative, and they're trying to make him look a certain way. And it did make him look a bit like, ooh, like he did come off a little uh histrionic and like excessive. He did come off in this kind of way. And it was and so they wanted to like have like a commune. So they wanted to make like a place where everybody could come and live, and they were gonna like, and the babies born were already gonna be ascended. Like, there were some a lot of red flags in those future plans. Um, so Sleepy, he would probably turn that back on you and say, "You don't know." Like, he must have empathy because he is, I don't know, like, he would twist it in some way. I'm not a psychopath, like, I can't twist things that quickly. Like, he could twist things in a way that was very just, ugh. And I'm not saying he's a psychopath. I am saying that there were some problematic things that were done and said on that docuseries. Very, very problematic. Um Ooh, so I've talked about the difference between a sociopath and a psychopath. And let me see if I can find, because I found a really good article. Sociopath versus a psychopath. Let me share this screen. Okay. So, and so this is just a general, okay, so this is just a general thing where it talks about how typically a psychopath has a lack of guilt, remorse, and empathy. They pretend to feel emotions, inability to form true emotional attachments, tend to be successful. They're typically dishonest. There's manipulative behavior, possibly some narcissism and superficial charm. A sociopath, there tends to be a lack of remorse, but guilt and empathy may be present in some cases. Some emotions are felt, but they're shallow and fleeting. May form, so a sociopath might form close relationships with one or maybe a few individuals. Um, there's consistent irresponsibility and repeated violations of the law, constant lying and deception. And then sociopaths tend to end up in jail. Like, there tends to be some aggressive or reckless behavior. And so, yes, let me see if there is another one. Sociopaths often quick to get angry and defensive when confronted, may have legal and unstable personal lives, believe that a person's environment can play a role in them becoming a sociopath, and they might have a weak conscience. A psychopath normally doesn't explode under pressure, can underreact in dangerous or stressful situations, usually avoids developing relationships, uses people for their own plan, no strong morals or conscience, believed that genetics and biology can play a larger role in psychopathology. So then there's that. I meant to say share this tab instead of stop sharing. Yes. So let me link both articles in the chat. All the other things I have posted. There we go. Welcome, welcome. Thanks for joining. All right. So let's go back to talking about gaslighting because that often happens in these situations. That's a method of control that's often used. And so make it bigger. There we go. All right. So gaslighting red flags. They want you to apologize um, without knowing what you actually did wrong. There's an imbalance of power. They give you affection and then abruptly yank it away. They assign motives to your actions that are the opposite of your intentions. So it's like you meant to, but like that wasn't your intention. Excuse me. When you try to explain how you feel, they're dismissive. They say you're overreactive or being too sensitive. They downplay the emotions. You saw examples of that in the Netflix documentary. Most interactions leave you feeling small or ashamed. They insist that it didn't happen the way that you said, and it leaves a person very confused because it's often somebody that they, like, value their opinion, they're trying to get their approval, which can just be very, very confusing. You find yourself questioning your beliefs and opinions. If your point of view doesn't match theirs, then it's wrong. You edit every word before you speak it, changing any thought that they could possibly misconstrue, and they still might misconstrue something. And so, they say things like, "Can you hear yourself? It's all your fault. You're remembering things wrong. Why are you so defensive all the time?" When they're the ones being defensive. So often a narcissist will project their own stuff, the things they're doing onto their victim, onto the other person. They often project their emotion because that helps protect their weak ego. Because the narcissist's secret is
Were matched up together,
incredibly
clearly I
insecure. Sorry.
didn't feel comfortable with it.
All right. So I have a little bit of a clip here. And because I screen recorded it, it wouldn't let me play the whole thing. And so let me go on ahead. This clip is there's some triggers, but I really like how this individual described her experience, and they play a clip of things that Jeff said. Let's go. Trigger warnings already.
Were matched up together, clearly I didn't.
So this was another girl. So this is the one where she's going to talk about she was already happy and she wasn't in the group to find her twin flame. They told her that her twin flame was someone that she didn't like, and she's going to speak up about it.
Feel comfortable with it.
Marie Sophie, why don't you tell us what you heard in today's class? What did you get from it?
I heard some good things, but I really have a lot of doubts still in myself.
You keep those doubts. Just hang right on to them.
I want to come to the conclusion of Fabian as my twin on my own as well.
Oh, there's your problem.
Yeah.
Are you alone?
No.
No, not alone. You have God, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to have this one figured out. That's why you came to me, isn't it? To get this figured out. That's why you sat through every class. You dealt with all the hard shit. You showed up today. You're not happy alone, are you?
I always choose to be happy, and I already am.
Mm.
And I want to keep being happy, and I never
That's
run
your lie.
away.
You're not happy. You are numbed out. You cannot be happy without your twin flame.
But I am happy.
I've had about enough of that, Marie-Sophie. I've had about enough of your disrespect of me.
It's getting pretty old.
Well,
I will not be abused by you, Marie-Sophie. You don't know better than God. And you must surrender to him.
It just didn't make sense for
So that one was from the Amazon documentary, and I was so proud. I think her name was Maria Sophie. Don't give me and names. We all know me and names, but she was so just clear, and she was not going. And that's why I think he started with keep your doubt, because remember she was like, I have my doubts, and normally you would think in a cult, okay, you're going to challenge my doubt. But he told her to keep her doubt. So it's like, okay. But then she's still like, I want to come to this on my own. And he's like, there's your problem. Didn't you come to this for me to give you the answer? And she's like, no. So she joined the group for her own personal development, for her own personal growth. She didn't join the group because she was like looking for her twin flame, or because she was lacking in any way. This was to like, she already had a good sense of who she was, and she did not allow the group to tear her down. And I was just like, I was so proud. And she ended up getting kicked out of the group. So right after that, she ended up getting banned from the Facebook group, and she ended up being shunned, which then the message that sends to everybody else is, if you speak up, you'll be kicked out, and you'll miss out, because people are there for a reason. Like, people are trying to get answers to important questions, or so groups like this can feed off of people's insecurities in their most vulnerable times and their most kind of vulnerable places. And so yes, she ended up getting kicked out. So you don't, please don't watch. So that's why I'm telling y'all everything y'all have to know. So I'm not saying because I'm using clips, and so you're supposed to go watch. But like, if it's too much, I've already told you it's incredibly triggering. He has weird views on intimacy that women have to, even if you don't want to, you still have to, and like, ugh. Like, I think women should like, should have it every day. And there were just all of these just very, I think they have like trainings on like teaching the women about like how to please their partner. He would encourage people that were trying to pursue their twin flames. He would encourage them to send like nude pictures. So somebody who doesn't even like you, like somebody who doesn't, like somebody who said, don't talk to me. Like, why would I send them? Like, no. Like, he would, like, what guy doesn't like he would, the advice he gave to me, there were red flags all over. And let's talk about the trans part. So what ends up happening in the group is, because they have this guarantee that you're going to find your twin flame, I think what ends up happening, especially after people leave, or like he stops not getting money because people aren't finding their match, it's easier to control people from within. So he starts matching people up. And some people have had like surgeries and things. Like, some people have transitioned. The group has more women than men. And in their mind, they want it to be divine masculine and divine feminine. Let's talk about their divine masculine and divine feminine. And they had people that are trans in their group, and I'm guessing they wouldn't let somebody be non-binary, like, you have to choose. And in a lesbian couple or in a gay couple, like, one of you is the feminine divine and one of you is the masculine divine. Like, there was everything, once again, very black and white, but I think that was based on some of their own stuff and not at all based in science or any of those things. And some people, like, transitioned and tried to have relationships that, like, they had never been attracted to someone of the same sex. But what they said is, "Oh, no, 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 like, they're divine masculine, so they're not. They're actually a male." And they would, like, pick a name for them, and it was and then there was a trans individual that, um a male to female, individual that was in the group who was grouped with somebody else, and, like, the things just got weird, and I think around that time, they ended up losing a lot of people, and I think that's when the Vice article came out as well. So, here's the Vice article. I have it linked down below. This YouTube school promised true love. Students say they got exploited instead. And once again, Shalia and Jeff, they deny all these claims. There are videos of what happened, which makes it a little bit, that's why I don't mind giving commentary on it, because we all saw the videos. And so different members share their story of what happened within the group. Um, and so then a reporter from Vice, and this was in the Amazon documentary, and that wasn't in the Netflix one. She ends up reaching out to Jeff and Shalia after the Vice article comes out, to say, "Hey, I'd really like to tell your side of the story." And I think Jeff and Shalia thought that they could, I don't know, that it would be a more positive article, and it ends up being a lot. But, so they end up doing, so before we all spent our days on Zoom, the spiritual community used the power of its Facebook group and webcams to spread a gospel of eternal love and build its founder's business along the way. Is it a cult that has manipulated some members' understandings of their own genders, as ex-followers allege, or the outermost extremes of influencing, blah, blah, blah. And so that's the article there, and I have that linked below as well in the description. Whew. All right, I'm gonna come back to the chat. So Deacon, so people are willingly giving them their money. So, like, I don't know that a crime has happened, because I'm not the lawyer. Remember, I'm not the lawyer. So they have been reported to the authorities, and what the authorities do, so if there were children involved, that could create a problem. Because these are adults, it's not illegal to, now, to me, it's not moral, it's not just, it's not right. So they aren't physically putting their hands on, like, they're giving people bad advice, in my opinion. It's not good advice to, if somebody has a restraining order against you, to continue to, like, stalk them. That's a problem. But and they would later say that they didn't do those things, and it's uh, oh, all right. And so I'm just catching up on the chat. Oh, So, not sure if it's in the current DSM, but I read about. So, do you mean dissociative identity disorder? Dissociative identity disorder? Because especially if people are involved in ritualistic um, harm at a very, very young age, especially in like infancy, very, very young. Um, Dissociative disorders, so like those more depersonalization, derealization can definitely happen in adulthood. In my experience, often people that develop dissociative identity disorder often have very, very severe forms of abuse very, very young. And um, so Sleepy Valor, I see your question about isn't sending certain pictures illegal? So what the group was saying was for that member to send it to somebody else. Does that like it they weren't sending it to Jeff and Shalia. Does that make sense? And but depends on your state. I don't know every state. I don't recommend sending intimate pictures because like the interwebs, things can get intercepted. Like, the government could look at your phone. Was it the Alec Murdaugh trial where didn't like was it the Alec Murdaugh trial where some guy had like some racy pictures on his phone? I think he was a witness. Was it the Murdaugh one or was it a different one? I remember watching a trial and there were some racy pictures on a witness's phone. And yes, and that ended up coming up in and he was married and it was a woman that was not his wife. And we kind of glossed over that whole situation. But uh so that's why I'm just like, no, like just I don't as it's just I don't give y'all advice, but it's just my own thing. I don't do it. It's just not not that. No, it's one that's similar to DID, but they don't meet full criteria. Okay, so not otherwise specified or something. Yes. So maybe dissociative. So the way one individual who talked about surviving the Nexium group, she talked about dissociating at times. And dissociation is a way that sometimes we cope with stress, we cope with issues. If I'm having like a really invasive dental procedure, I might feel disconnected from my body for a period of time, or something like that. Um, I once severely injured like my fingers. I didn't dissociate in that time, but I was definitely disconnected from the pain. So sometimes our brain and bodies do things to protect ourselves. I talked a lot about dissociation related to the Letitia trial because she was claiming to have DID and she does not. Um, Based on what the jury found and all of those things. Um, All right. And so it definitely was the Murdaugh trial. So that's why just be careful with phones. Like it's and like don't like walk around pointing firearms at people like poot. Like just don't do those things. The brain really is amazing at what it'll do to protect us from trauma. So I did a video earlier today on Tyler Perry and kind of how he coped with his trauma. And I didn't mention on that one, he had this safe place he would go and he would visualize. Like he had this very detailed imagination, and in his imagination he would detail out exactly. So his safe space was just like hiding under like a little part of a shed or something, but in his mind he created this elaborate detailed thing, and I do think that helped him survive. But we can't. So do we think he'll get another trial? um the clerk's son was arrested. I think it's Jeff. I could be wrong. I'm bad with names. Jeff Hill? I could be wrong. I think it starts with a J. But he was arrested for like intercepting some phone call or something. I don't know that he'll get a new trial, but he's already going to be in jail because he pled guilty to the financial stuff. So, uh, uh, so no matter what, and I don't know if he pled guilty to that to maybe try to look less guilty. Like, oh, if he admitted to that crime, then and he's fighting this one, then maybe it's not true. And so I'm not surprised. That whole and he was making like $90,000 a year in South Carolina. Like 90,000 a year in South Carolina is like $200,000 a year up in Northern Virginia. So, um, in order to cope with being in such environments, wouldn't it be a section of certain parts of yourself? So the thing with twin flames is that people elect to how involved they are with the group. So some people might have just been involved with the Facebook group. So they didn't pay for the classes. They just did the Facebook group. Some people paid for the classes, some people paid for coaching. The deeper you got into the group, to me, from my observation from the outside, the more problematic things got, the closer you got to the group. Or so people that were for real in the tight-knit community, that's when more control. So people that were in the free community, people might have found portions of it helpful. People that just did like one class. So the MLM part, because it sounds like the coaches, it does seem like there's a bit of a pyramid. It seems like there are coaches, but the more coaches there are, the less clients there are available for all the coaches. And because so I don't know if they talk to a lawyer about how to avoid particular laws in their state. I don't know. That could be something that they get in trouble for financially if somebody does ever look at it and thinks like it's a MLM. It is I think the twin flames part is like a religion. And so I think they're a religion. But, like, because the coaches then have to pay. In order to be a coach, you have to pay for a certain number of, so it's not like they don't give the money back, but they have to pay for more coaching. Like, it's a bit warped. I don't know. Yes, exactly. Yes. So that's actually more common for people to experience depersonalization and derealization without dissociative identity disorder. Um and CPTSD, complex post traumatic stress disorder, and then also PTSD, because people have to meet certain criteria in order to meet criteria for those diagnoses. Because they're so somebody can have sometimes some of those things are separate because the while dissociation is a symptom of PTSD, some people their dissociation is so severe that they meet criteria for a dissociative disorder, which would be separate. All right. Um, I did hear about the Derek Chauvin thing, and it does sound like he required medical treatment because the question is, um, was about how severe it was. I've heard the prison that he's in gets people in and out, people that are being held for short periods of time. His defense is trying to get him into isolation. What's it called? Solitary confinement, because he is at risk of being harmed by other inmates, because he is a very popular person. Dissociative identity disorder is extremely rare. Yes, I do have a few systems that follow me. Um, Yes, 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 yes. And the thing with dissociation is grounding techniques. So anyone that comes out of this type of trauma, of this type of negative event, because sometimes what can happen is while they're in it, they might not have that many symptoms. So let me say that again. So while someone is in a kind of traumatic abusive situation, sometimes their trauma symptoms might not be that extreme. Once they leave and they realize all that's happened, that is when, in my experience as a therapist, especially specializing in trauma, that's when a lot of things can come up for the individual as they realize, oh my gosh, all of this was a lie, because their whole system, like their whole mental system, like their belief system, they start to question everything. And so that's why having somebody work with them. So that's where people who have been like, the word I'll use, like people who've been like abducted, they often before they go back to their family, they often go through like special therapy where before they return to their family, because to kind of deprogram. Stockholm syndrome is real. Stockholm syndrome, where you kind of identify with the person harming you. We often forget that fawn, FAWN, is people pleasing, is a trauma response. And that some people, and there's no like, sometimes the way people survive a negative event is by pleasing or like making the person harming them happy. And that can be like a trauma response. And so often, um, in my experience, once somebody leaves, that's when they need a ton of support and help. And that's when like things can really start to like they can decompensate, because they also lose their community as well. Because so like some people like in the twin flames universe, like they had friends, like they were connected with people. Some of those people have kept in contact, like if they all kind of left together, or if they but people who are still in it are often like excommunicated from people that are out of it. It's similar to some religions that like excommunicate people as well. And so um right. And so um yes, yes, yes. All right. Let me know if so. I'm going to keep going because I want to talk about spiritual harm, because I don't like it when people use religion to harm people. And there are two different definitions of spiritual harm, and that's misuse of a position or power, leadership or influence to further the selfish interests of someone other than the individual who needs help. And it's also manipulation and exploitation of others by misuse of spiritual privilege and power. And there does seem to be clear signs based on the Netflix and the Amazon documentary that spirituality is being used to say, God told us this. You have to believe what we said. Any any feedback to us is being critical of God. Like, that's where things get a bit ugh. Characteristics of a cult leader, it's very common for them to be very charismatic, to be very, like, just have big personalities, have personalities where people kind of like being around them. They have influence and they're highly persuasive. There's often this authoritarian control that we talked about before, and this, like, dictatorship type way of then trying to control and maintain oh no people's trying to control and maintain everything about an individual. There are isolation tactics, so we talked about that a little bit earlier. Those exploitive behaviors, narcissistic traits, and manipulative speech. So they use manipulative tactics to control and distort reality such that others fail to think critically or question the leader's authority. Or if they do question them, they can get kicked out. So, all right. So that is that. All right. So the whole Lori Vallow thing, because I did do a video on Lori Vallow talking about adoption and spiritual abuse. Um, I truly, a lot of her delusional beliefs seem to further her own personal goals and personal plans. And I'll be watching Chad Daybell's I'll be watching Chad Daybell's thing. Thank you, Tish, for sharing that part. I appreciate it. So only if I have a PowerPoint, or else I'll go down the rabbit holes with y'all. Uh, okay, is there a reason that I'm seeing this more often throughout the world? So I think our digital connection lets groups like this expand further and quicker. So they had a YouTube channel they have Facebook groups. And so, like in the past, these groups would spread by word of mouth, or they would spread in different ways. And I think people are looking for hope. People are looking for connection. People want to be a part of something, and but they have to be on the lookout for red flags. So I am a spiritual person, and I'm thankful that the community that I'm involved with, that we talk about the importance that, hey, you don't have to think what I think. Like, we can disagree. You don't have to think what I think. I did, because it's a certain type of church where I think I did have to, I forget if I had to sign something, I don't know, but, like, we had, like, a class of, like, what the church believes and all of those things. But it was okay if you didn't believe everything that the church did. I'm also a part of an LGBTQ accepting church. I'm not sure if it's, so to me, affirming does marriages. So I don't know if my church does marriages, but I do know that it is accepting. And so, yes. Right. Oh. So, but I think, so she might be talking about a spiritual experience where she thinks she's, like, communicating with, like, God or something. Like, I've seen some leaders like that do stuff like that, where they, because, like, the way that Jeff and Shalia talk to each other, that in no way would be my ideal relationship or ideal marriage. Not at all. We do have a collective ADHD brain. All my favorite streamers have ADHD. It's a true story, and it's up there. Because I've been doing this since 1:15, and so I do have a little tea. I have a little caffeine pick me up. Um, People are lonely. Yeah, that can definitely happen, and I think people want connection. Um, Phoenix, you don't think she believed it? So I know that I wish her trial could have been televised and I could have seen the psychologists, the people, the expert witnesses that talked about her delusional disorder. I would have loved to have seen that. I do think that she wouldn't let her defense throw Chad Daybell under the bus. I think his defense is going to throw her very, very quickly under the bus. Like, I think that's why he wanted to sever their trials. That's why he waived his right to a speedy defense. Like, I think we'll see what happens with Chad's case. Um, I can't with y'all sometimes. Uh, the post verdict, that, like, she used scripture. She used scripture. Like, it was that I think I covered that. I think they did play that. I think I did. I think I did a video reacting to that. It was a mess. It was definitely a mess. And so all these cases is how I got connected with all of these other, things. So Lori Vallow, Chad Daybell, very, very triggering story. She has an adult son, and she was found guilty of conspiring to murder her now husband's wife, and, like, she was somehow involved with that. And, like, because, like, the shortly after, like, his wife died, like, he was in Hawaii marrying her. Like, it was, or, like, the whole, their connection is just very, very weird. And, but his wife was the moneymaker, and, like, they wanted the wife's, like, insurance policy, because his wife was really the one that was, like, making money in the family. He's, like, didn't really, because even with Lori, because she was, it's alleged that she was involved in the murder of her, like, her first husband. Like, it's just, the whole case is just very, very messy. And then this is the big one. unalived her adopted autistic son along with her daughter. I think her daughter was like she was in her teens, and the autistic son was I think he was like 11 or 12 or something like that. I'm bad with names. But the whole thing but her trial was put on pause for her mental health. She was found incompetent to stand trial. She was probably believed like y'all, I don't know, like she probably said some things like, you know, only God can judge me because she kind of said that in her sentencing thing like y'all don't have any authority over me. Like it was kind of odd. And but eventually her she was found to be competent to stand trial. She was found guilty of I want to say the murders of her two children. Um and but it was very very messy. It was a very 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 messy situation. Okay, so maybe the son was maybe 7, and it's so sad because he had grandparents that would have taken him. So he was adopted within his family. So like his birth mother, I think wasn't able his birth mother and birth father for whatever reason weren't able to care for him, but his I think it's paternal. I think maybe his dad's grandparents or because he had grandparents that were very involved in his life and they're the ones that ended up calling the police and because they were just like something's off, something's wrong. We haven't seen or talked to him in forever, and it was very 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 concerning. And so that's where we talk about these groups where there can be a high control family as well. So I do think from what I've seen, Lori Vallow ran like a high control family, and like there was a lot of chaotic stuff. Did y'all also see like the woman who like thought her son was like the Messiah and was preparing the doomsday mom or whatever that like ran off with her child? I'm bad with names. I think he was like a teenager. There were like this was that out of Utah too? Like there's a lot of interesting things down in Utah. And so Deacon, I hope everything's okay. But yeah. Thank y'all for joining. Ooh, yeah. So let me try to find that one. Woman, uh, like so the woman ran off his son, thought he was the Messiah. Like there was like literally like she thought he was the second coming. Um yeah, I'm gonna share. I just found New York Post. That was the first one I found. Do. Where is it? All right. So, sorry for all the ads. I can't. Mormon mom runs off with 16-year-old son who she believes was chosen by God in the second coming of Christ. And so his name was Blaze. Y'all know I can't say that. And his mother's name was Spring. And his sister Abby Snar and his uncle Brooke traveled to Idaho from Arizona after buying thousands of dollars worth of survival gear. I believe it was the father that reported them missing. Yes, so Ben reported his son missing and believed he may be in danger because his mother sees him as Davidic, yeah, servant who plays a significant role in the Savior's return. They feel they needed to take him to an undisclosed location where he could receive his calling and understand his role in the second coming. Like it was a very, very strange thing. I fear for his safety, especially if my son is conscientious, rebellious, or belligerent. I fear that my brother-in-law would restrain him or something that would incapacitate him. So this was a picture of the kid. I can't I try to not show, but like his picture is everywhere. But after the 4 family members hadn't been heard from since Monday, Blaze, who is legally required to return to his dad, was found safe in Alaska by Border Patrol agents. Like it was. And I'll put that link if anybody wants to look into that more. But was that was whoa. Because um oh, why they crossed back into the US once they were reported is beyond comprehension. They're basically at large in Canada and fell into being caught. Thank goodness they were. Thank goodness. So I don't, and maybe they thought, so sometimes people that have some of these religious themes, sometimes they think like this is a God ordained mission. Like God's going to keep us, like sometimes like the thoughts can really get very problematic. So I talk about that there's a faith that heals and there's a faith that hurts. And so I wonder if they thought that like God would protect them and would keep them safe. Ugh, it was a whole thing. And so that was a very, very scary situation. I saw the YouTube video because I think the dad posted a video, or I saw it on YouTube. Forget if it was on Law and Crime. I know Mormon podcast stories, and then also Hidden True Crime covered it as well. It was very, very, and glad because I think he was found within. I think it was like within a week. I think it was within a week they were found. But they had all the survival gear and everything to possibly like try to live on their own in the wild for a period of time. All right. So Alaska's more remote. So I wonder if that's why they were trying to get to Alaska. So yeah. I'm just glad that he's safe. Him and his sister are back with their dad, and I believe the mom and uncle, they were both arrested, and they'll be facing charges. Yes. Especially like they took them across state lines, took them out of the country, so they'll be facing those charges. But if y'all have anything that y'all would like for me to cover, I love hearing y'all's thoughts. I think it's really helpful. I'm looking at the last comment. Oh, so within the Mormon culture, divorce is harder because so I guess the mom and the other Mormon podcasts and then Hidden True Crime, they both cover this better than I will, but there was somebody's teaching that the mom had gotten under and that person's teachings were real, like they were even the LDS church, so even their Mormon church was like that's not accurate, that's not right, and they were forbidden from like reading that person's work or something, but the but everything had already been laid down. Yes. So a cartoon? Which one? So I think I did one on Encanto, but it was back before I knew. So I know what I'm doing more a little bit now, a little bit more. I'll continue to grow and develop as a streamer, but Inside Out 2 is going to come out. And so whenever that comes out, I definitely want to see that because I adored Inside Out 1. But if y'all have one that y'all would like for me to cover, especially if it's like on Netflix or Amazon Prime or Hulu, if it's on one of those, I definitely will because I do like cartoons. The last one I saw, I don't even remember. It's probably on Disney. Inside Out, yeah. So I'm excited to see Riley. Riley's added some more emotions. So anxiety shows up and like a frustration, I think. Like Riley gets some more complex emotions added to her control panel. And the way that Inside Out talks about emotions is psychologically sound. And so I really appreciate that. Um, but so like I literally get my best ideas from you all, or else I'll be like, what should I do? I don't know what I should do. I have a whole content list. So I have a list of things that I want to cover. Ooh, I love The Office, Parks and Rec. I there was another one, but The Office and Parks and Rec. I did love those. We have to talk about it from a psychological perspective, though, not just that we love it, though. So I might have to do one on Shrinked. I don't think I did actual video on Shrinked. Mm, I watched it a while back, but um, ah, welcome, welcome, Alice in Wonderland. See, is there a new one or like the old one? Are we gonna do so? Like, but tell me the side. Okay, I'm gonna write this one down because that one, the trauma and the like, ugh, that one, that one is tough. There's a lot in that one. It's an old one. Okay. I appreciate you all. I try to schedule my lives out early so y'all know when I'm coming on. And y'all are phenomenal. This is literally like why I go live because y'all make this so easy and y'all really just help things just kind of go. And I can't tell y'all how much I appreciate it. I hope y'all had a good holiday and that you all enjoy the rest of your weekend. I hope y'all have a good one. Bye.